Welcome to the Adventures Club of Los Angeles. I'm your host tonight, Rich Mayfield. I'm here tonight with Mickey Charteris. Mickey, can you hear us?
Welcome.
Welcome.
Yes, I can. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great. So where are you right now, Mickey?
Right now, I am in my little beach house in Sandy Bay on an island called Roatan, just off the north coast of Honduras.
Wow, all the way from Honduras. That's pretty awesome. Thank you for joining us tonight. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got down to Honduras, when you got down to Honduras, and why you're still there. I know that's a long story.
Well, yeah, I'll try and make a long story short. I was actually, wow, how far back do I go? I was living in Tokyo. and I decided to do a really long bicycle ride. And I took my bicycle, a mountain bike, from Panama City, and I rode it all the way up to Whistler, Canada. Took a year off and did that. And I was sitting in a bar in Whistler and looking over the last year I just spent. And the one place that really stuck out in my mind was the Bay Islands of Honduras. And I just couldn't wait to get back and continue diving. So I took a one-way flight. And I've been here for over 20 years now.
Wow. So down in Honduras, what's your specialty? What do you do down there? So, I know we already know, for those of you that read the briefs, but why don't you tell everybody who's watching for the first time what you do down in Honduras?
Oh, they got the bio already. Okay. Well, I guess, again, cut a long story short, my life has become documenting the species that live on this coral reef. I dive every day, and I don't know how many dives I have on this reef. Somewhere between 10,000 dives, maybe. And my job that I've given myself is to document every living creature on this reef, and it's a hell of a task.
So how did you get started with that? Did you just go down there and decide you wanted to start scuba diving? I mean, I know a lot of people do.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was just I was an instructor at the time, and that was fun, but I couldn't spend that much time with human beings underwater. So I borrowed a friend's still camera, and from that first photograph that I took underwater, I knew I was hooked. And I started gathering up what I called a species library. And I got 100 fish, and then I got 200 fish, and then 300.
Wow.
And then I told myself, I told myself kind of jokingly that when I hit 1,000 species, I would publish a book.
And did you published a book at 1,000?
Yeah, 2000 and
oh wow,
12, I hit my mark. So that was when the first edition of my book, Caribbean Reef Life, came out.
And how many editions do you have now?
Right now, I'm up to my 3rd edition. I'm in the 5th or 6th printing. Now I'm up to 1,500 species. The next edition should have 2,000. So that's coming up soon.
And most of these were photographed around where you live?
Only around where I live, yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about the island, Roatan? What's unique about that brought you there? And what, I guess, does every place have 2,000 species that you can?
Sure. I think if you dig hard enough, you'll get to that mark just about anywhere in the Caribbean. But let's just say it was easier on Roatan. Roatan is uniquely placed. It's right on the edge of the Cayman Trench. You know, the name Honduras actually comes from the Spanish hondo, meaning deep, deep waters. Columbus named it for the depth of the waters. He couldn't get soundings as he was getting closer and closer to the Bay Islands. So we've got very, very deep water, but we're lucky that we're just far enough away from the mainland of Honduras that we don't have the runoff and the agricultural runoff and all the nonsense that you get being too close to the mainland. So we're in a sort of unique position. We've got some really good currents coming both east and south, depositing species, but we are a micro environment, I think. We're just far enough separated from the mainland that we've got some endemic species as well. So it's a pretty special place to dive and hunt for fish.
So is it pretty difficult to get out there, or what is it like getting out there these days?
Well,
are there still flights going out there?
2020 kind of messed things up, but let's say before COVID, Roatan has been discovered now, and it's kind of sad to see the changes that have happened over the last 20 years. It used to be kind of a mecca for divers, photographers, even marine biologists. But then they built a cruise ship port. Of course, with the cruise ship port, all the airlines started coming in as well. We have, or had, flights from Miami, Atlanta, New York. Roatan really was discovered a few, 6, 8 years ago, and it's boomed. And the reef has been suffering ever since.
So as far as the impacts on the reef go, you started diving there how many years ago?
Just over 22 now.
At over 20 years, 2,000 species, which is phenomenal. So out of that time, what kind of changes have you seen in the reef?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Here in the west end of Roatan, we had a marine park start getting very, very active as soon as the cruise ships started coming in. And they implemented mooring balls, no fishing. They stopped a lot of the poaching that was going on. So in this little enclave here in the west of the island, we're actually doing pretty well. But as soon as you step out of the marine park, it's pretty bad. The land development that's been going on here. There's now golf courses. The Marriott is here. These big hotel chains. They've been stripping down the hillsides, and we are really seeing a lot of degradation of the reef because of that.
So do you think most of the damage comes from local impacts, not like because you have these global effects, right? And then you have these local effects. So what do you think most of the changes come from?
Well, years ago, I thought it was all from the local impacts. It was very, very noticeable. When that golf course was built, one of our favorite dive sites within 2-3 years just got silted up, and it was, it's pretty sad to dive. But I'll say that the global impacts are the ones that we're most worried about now. The ocean is warming. There's no doubt about that. Our corals are bleaching more and more often. We now have a new spate of coral diseases that are moving through the Caribbean that are taking out, and I'm not joking, not trying to be alarmist, they're taking out 60 to 70% of our living coral, and that's happened within the last 2 years.
And those are diseases that have migrated into the region.
Exactly. There's one in particular that's been really devastating, and I know somewhere you guys might have a graphic of this one. It's called Stony coral tissue loss disease, and it's a bacterial infection that basically it's kind of like a flesh-eating bacteria that gets onto the coral.
Do you have a picture of that, Andy, that you can bring up?
Yeah.
This is the cover of your book, right?
Image of the side by side, a living coral head and a diseased one.
This is a beautiful cover for your book, by the way, while we're on this graphic.
Oh, yes,
is that up
you.
there right now? I hope you all can see that. That's fantastic. This just gives you guys a little bit of an idea of his photography. I love that picture. But let's try to find some less beautiful pictures. I think I remember seeing that. Andy, can you pull up that picture? The one, the side by side of the corals. It's split screen, left and right.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Yeah, he's looking for it right now,
folks. There it is. Okay.
So this is a disease. Where did this disease start? And I guess it's finally gotten to you guys down there.
Yeah, yeah. It got to us in about November of last year. Um, this one started in actually in Florida. It's called Stony coral tissue loss disease, and it started about what 4 years ago with a dredging project in the harbor in Miami. And this disease started spreading, killed off most of the Florida Keys, and then because it's waterborne, made its way to, well, the rest of the Caribbean, really. Mexico got hit, the Cozumel area got hit about 2-3 years ago.
So
And
now this shows, you can see it, it's basically the skeleton of the coral, right? Is this a specific species that it affects, or does it affect all species of coral?
Yeah, problem is it affects just about all of our reef building coral species.
Huh.
It is indiscriminate and it jumps from one species to the next. Right now, Mexico, the Cozumel area, they've lost about 70% of their live coral coverage. And in the last 6 months since it started here, we're getting pretty close to that as well. So it's a virulent thing that's moving south through the Caribbean.
So you're saying in 6 months, you lost 60 to 70% of your live coral?
Right now, we're probably about the 40-50 mark, but it's getting there. Yeah,
but in a 6 month span, in less than a year, this isn't a problem that's creeping up. This is like a quick, almost instant die off.
It's like a tornado that comes through the reef. Huh. It's so fast. Yeah, it's pretty depressing.
Now, will the reef recover from this, or is this like or do we not know yet? Has it recovered up in the Keys, or?
No. Once these are dead, these are dead. That colony that you're looking at in that photo, that's a good few hundred years old, that coral colony. Huh. And it's shelter for so many different species. Once that coral is gone, it's gone. It will take lifetimes before the corals can grow to that size again.
And there's more or less nothing we can do about this at this point.
There is nothing. There's some research being done on applying antibiotics, and our marine park goes out, and bless them, they try. Whenever they see a spot of this disease, they go down with syringes full of an antibiotic paste that they try and apply to the lesions. But it's waterborne. It just skips across that barrier. Yeah.
That's pretty rough. Let's transition into some of your more beautiful photography here. Andy, can we see that picture of the turtle again?
Okay.
So these guys are more on the apex. So, but it's interesting because we start, the coral is what everything is based on, right?
Exactly. Corals really are the building blocks of the reef ecosystem. But we're looking at, we'll talk about happier things now, because there are signs of, well, there is a lot of beauty here. And one thing we do have a lot of is the sea turtles. That's a picture of a hawksbill turtle there, an endangered species. And yet we have turtles still coming to nest on the island. Huh. And it's kind of a beautiful thing. You get these turtles, of course, we all know they come back to the same spot where they were hatched. Now they come back to an island that's full of lights and resorts and tourists and ATVs running up and down their nesting beach. So the Marine Park has done a pretty interesting thing. They've told all the islanders, anybody who finds a turtle nest, they're going to pay them to watch it. And so, because of course turtle eggs are still on the menu for the islanders, it's a great treat. But these guys will now make more money rather than digging those eggs up. they'll camp out there until they hatch.
Huh. And they get paid to do it. That
have a
sounds
really
like a good
active
gig
turtle
right
population.
there.
Yeah,
Camp on the beach, watch some turtles, get paid.
exactly. You know, trying to make it worthwhile for the locals to maybe change their eating habits a little bit, but to help out, obviously, an endangered species and a species that people pay money to come to the island to come and see.
Right. So when you photograph these guys, this guy was just in open water, right? I think I see a little bit of reef behind there. But where do you normally encounter these turtles? What's their deal?
Sure. Well, this species, the hawksbill, he gets that name because of the beak in front of his mouth is for breaking open sponges. He feeds predominantly on something called a leathery barrel sponge that has a really tough leathery exterior. And that beak is to break open that outer shell, and he feeds on it. So he's going to be out on the reef where the sponges are. The other ones, the green turtles, they feed mostly on jellyfish. So they're going to be out further away from the wall. They also feed on turtle grass, hence turtle grass. So you'll find them in the lagoons.
So now, when you mentioned the wall, can you explain that to everybody? What is the wall?
Sure, okay. Basically, the reef top, as it's grown over the millennia, the reef top here is about 20 to 25 feet deep. And then it just drops off down into the Cayman Trench. Some of our dive sites, you can't see the bottom. And obviously, the deeper you go, the darker it gets. Corals change the deeper you get. They spread out more to catch the available light. So these walls are pretty dramatic. And obviously, sticking out into the ocean is where they gather a lot more current. So we have a lot of planktivores, the larger predators feeding on them. Everything happens out over the edge of the wall.
Now, is that a dangerous place to dive? Because I imagine if you're in 60 feet of water, you see the bottom. And if you sink to the bottom, if you have a problem with buoyancy, you are on the bottom at 60 feet. But what's it like diving on the edge of that wall when you look out over and there's just nothing?
Yeah, there's nothing but literally black water underneath you. Yeah, it's a dangerous place to dive if you're not experienced or if you're off on your own. Generally on those sort of dives, there's a dive master in your group. We don't allow shore diving here just for regular tourists. You have to go with a guide. But for those of us who live down there, do it every day, there's nothing like floating over 1,000 feet of water.
That must be pretty amazing. I mean, so that interface is where you see a lot of life, right? But you've got these currents that sweep back and forth across it. So
Exactly.
So what's it like diving in those currents at that edge? Do you get moved around quite a bit? Is that like a drift dive or what?
Very much so. There are points on the island, wherever the reef sticks out further, obviously it's going to catch a little bit more current. And those are places that we dive where we really put our faith in our boat captains. We'll drop in and we might get picked up a couple of miles away.
Wow.
Yeah.
So hopefully the boat drifts at the same rate that you guys are drifting underwater, right?
We have to trust our boat captains sometimes for sure.
So are you a boat captain? You're a dive master, right? I mean, you've been doing, how many dives did you say you had? Something around 10,000?
Probably around 10,000 hours underwater by now, yeah.
When did you stop counting? Do you still count?
Oh, probably after the first 1,000, it's all jam.
Let's look at some more of these pictures that you gave us here. These are just so amazing. We got the turtle here. What is that?
Okay, that is a frogfish. This is one of my favorite things to shoot. Very, very difficult to find. This fish is mimicking a sponge. And it really doesn't do a lot. It's not that exciting. But this is actually one of the fastest strikes in the animal kingdom. This animal can gulp it's measured at 6 milliseconds. His mouth goes from closed to wider than his head.
Wow.
So he basically, he opens his mouth so fast and so wide that the whole volume of water in front of him just gets sucked in.
Huh. So it doesn't like bite. It literally opens up and sucks in, huh?
Exactly. Pretty much no teeth at all. It swallows its prey whole.
So now that looks like a really close shot. I know we've got a lot of photographers out here in the club that love doing this stuff. What kind of camera did you use to get that particular shot? Because you said this was a difficult one to find. So what kind of gear did you have on you? Yeah.
To be honest, I don't use fancy gear. I'm a big fan of compact cameras. I use the Canon G series cameras. Mm-hmm. They're one level above point and shoots, but they're very versatile. I can shoot a 50-foot whale shark, and the very next shot I take can be a nudibranch smaller than a grain of rice. These are versatile. They're cheap. I sometimes go out diving with other professional photographer friends, and these guys will have literally $15,000, $20,000 worth of kit, and my little $500 camera can come back with a better shot.
And you wrote a book with that $500 camera, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So let's talk about the book real quick. Andy, can you go back to that cover? So if we pick up this book, what you said there's in the newest edition, there's like over 2,000 species. So is it pictures or is it information about those species as well?
Well, what I did is I tried to do a bit of both. There are very good ID books for the Caribbean. I won't call them my competition because we are friends. But then there's a lot of coffee table books as well. I kind of wanted something in the middle. The book is scientifically accurate. I have a lot of professors around the world who have helped with the identifications, with the descriptions. But I wanted it to tell stories as well. It's not just a dry ID book. Yes, it has 1,500 species. It's been taken up by quite a few now, U.S. colleges for their Marine Biology 101 type courses. But I also wanted it something that can sit happily on a coffee table and can tell a few stories about the reef.
And it has beautiful imagery. So let's take a look at some more of that, Andy. Ooh, this one's a good one. Is this going to be a happy story or a bad story?
It started out as a bad story, and it's now getting kind of a happy ending.
Okay.
You've probably heard that lionfish are invasive species in the Caribbean.
Yeah, I've heard.
Okay, super. So, this when we started seeing them here on Roatan, and again, this is something. Thank you very much, United States, for sending us all of your weird exports from up north. This is something that started creeping down from Miami, where they were probably released from the aquarium trade. And at the time, we thought this was going to be the end of reefs in the Caribbean. These are voracious hunters, and they'll eat just about anything. And they have no predators in the Caribbean. 5-6 years ago, we would see 20 or 30 of these fish on the reef, gobbling up all of our local species. So we started spearing them. And now we actually have fish species that follow us on our dives. And they're almost like hunting dogs. We have groupers, snappers. They'll follow you if they see you have a spear, and they'll actually point out the lionfish to you. It's crazy. This big grouper, 2-3 feet long, will swim right in front of your mask, scare the heck out of you, and then immediately go and stick their head down in a hole and kind of look over their shoulder and go, hey, over here, over here. And you go and look in that hole, and true as nuts, there's a lionfish hiding in there. So you spear the lionfish, you pull it out of the hole, and the grouper goes, thank you very much, and eats it off the end of your spear. So we've, yeah, fish are smart.
Yeah, who would have thought the answer to one of the most invasive species is the most invasive species on the planet, right? For all these voracious problems out there, I guess we solved one, so that's good.
Exactly.
So, well, yeah, that did turn into. So the story with the lionfish is, if we want to get rid of them, we have to hunt them with spears, basically.
Yeah, yeah, and the story actually gets a little better. They've developed a taste now for the lionfish, so they're starting to document groupers, snappers, even the large green morays are now hunting lionfish on their own. So the natural predators are now emerging on the reef. We just had to give them a taste of what was available.
So that was a result of us spearing them and then them eating the carcass, basically.
I think so.
And then they figured out that they could hunt them themselves. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. So nature finds a way, right?
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the next picture here. Oh, is there a fish in there?
No. Now this is a shrimp.
Oh.
The thing you see off to the left of the photo there, it's kind of a semi-transparent little shrimp. Now this is what we call a commensal species. Commensals are species that are only found on certain hosts, and they have a symbiotic relationship with them. They've evolved together. And what it's living on there, it almost looks like a sea star, basket star. It's an animal called a crinoid. Now, there's quite a few crinoid species in the Caribbean, and each of them has a shrimp that hides and blends in with them. This one here, I took this photo in, wow, it must have been 2008 or 9. I could not get this little shrimp identified. I wrote to all my professors. Nobody knew what it was. Until finally, somebody said, why don't you send the picture to, there's a professor from the Oxford Museum of Natural History. He specializes in these commensal shrimp species. So I sent him the photo, and he writes back and says, no idea, kid. Catch me. And I'm like, yeah, right, catch you what? So I spent over a year with a specimen jar in my BCD pocket till I finally found this little shrimp again. And I preserved him in ethanol, sent him across the pond, and when he went under the microscope, true as nuts, new species, never before been seen.
Nice. So did you get to name it? What kind of rights do you get when you discover a species?
Well, traditionally, if you discover it, you get to name it. And I did a whole lot of back and forth with the professor. You know, Oxford has some very strict rules about how they name things. So we settled on Periclamines, which is the genus, Periclamines rincewindi.
All right, so how'd you get there?
Okay, the name rincewind, is anybody familiar with Terry Pratchett, the British fantasy novelist? Sir Terry Pratchett, if you haven't read, he has a series called The Discworld. And one of his characters is a wizard. He's the cowardly wizard that's always hiding from trouble.
Huh.
And that wizard's name is Rincewind. So this little shrimp, always hiding and blending in with his background, is now Periclymenes Rincewindi, named after a wizard in a British fantasy novel.
And that satisfies Oxford's stodgy rules for naming species after.
It satisfied all of us. Terry Pratchett is one of my favorite authors. Nice. Let's call it Rincewindi. So if ever you want to know how these scientific names get made, it's geeks like me that read too much British fantasy.
So I've got to ask, you found this guy, you had a specimen jar and you preserved it, right? How did you know that that wasn't the last one on the planet?
I get this question a lot. I didn't.
Have you encountered this species since then?
Since I have dozens, if not hundreds, because once you know where to look, it's like pattern recognition software in your head. You know, the reef is such a busy place. There's so much visual information coming at you from literally every square centimeter. Once you've seen something once, bump, 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 you'll see it again and again. So no worries there. There's lots of these guys.
Especially if it's your baby, right? That's your species now. Well, I don't know if you can own a species, but Oxford might let you own a species. I don't know.
He's mine. He's mine. He doesn't have my name. There's a few that have my name, but no. He's mine.
That's cool. All right, let's see the next picture here.
This next one feels appropriate since we're talking about naming things.
What is this guy?
So this is a nudibranch. Now, a nudibranch is a sea slug. This one is actually a sacaglossan. It's a very tiny little slug that uses the power of the sun to photosynthesize. Sap sucking slugs have special mouth parts that they literally suck the sap out of plants, out of marine algae. They store just the chloroplast, just the part of the plant, obviously, that makes photosynthesis happen. And then they walk around in the sunshine and produce sugars. So this little guy is in the Morgona family. And this is another example of one of the species I've found that science hasn't caught up with yet. You know, and you had said earlier that, you know, it's amazing that you catch so many species, or you've got 2,000 species on one reef. It's really not. If we spend hours every day on one little patch of reef, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of unknown and undescribed species out on this reef.
Huh. So this animal, right, that literally eats some plant, strips, and its digestive system strips the chloroplasts out, and it holds onto those until they stop producing, and then that's the deal.
Right.
And
that's right.
That's wild.
It's great. They are like little solar-powered batteries.
It's like a hybrid animal.
The reef, yes. It gets its food from the plant still living inside its body.
But not the whole plant. It can somehow, its digestive system is somehow evolved to strip out just the useful part.
Just the chloroplast, yeah. Which is why these many, let's just call them nudibranchs to make life easy. You see all those bumps on the back?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's where the chloroplasts are stored. Many of them have that sort of ruffled shape, or with lots of, they're called serrata, those tufts that are coming off the back. The more of those they have, the more surface area is available to the sun, the more sunlight can hit the chloroplasts, and the more sugar can be produced inside the animal.
That's wild. So for scale, this looks like it's very small, but can you give us a sense of actually how small this animal is? Because, you know, you got a real close-up shot.
Sure, sure. Look at your pinky nail.
That's it?
And cut that into quarters. Yeah, most of these are pretty tiny.
So how do you, what's your process? How do you go about finding an animal that small? Do you just sit down, literally sit down in the sand at the edge of a reef and try to dial in on one of these, or is it one of those pattern recognition things where you can kind of spot where they are?
It's a little bit of both. Generally, we find these things in areas that people would not normally dive. More and more, I'm not diving on the pretty wall or the exciting wall or the pretty reef top. I'm diving in channels, in areas of a lot of surge, with a lot of broken coral. Basically, really crappy areas with lots of either garbage or lots of surge, or places you wouldn't come to the Caribbean to want to dive. This is where a lot of the new stuff is being found. But a lot of these guys are living in coral debris. So you go down into a little rubble patch and start turning over broken shells, dead conch shells. This species here, I actually found underneath a Heineken bottle. That's why it's got the green background. There's an old Heineken bottle sitting, some fisherman had just thrown it over his boat. I was like, okay, that's an interesting habitat. And I slowly rolled over the Heineken bottle, and there's a new species of nudibranch.
Huh. That's really interesting because if this is underwater, so it's different. But if you pull that onto land, you would say, if I'm going out and hunting new species, right, or searching, we'll say searching, not hunting, new species, I might go to the Amazon or Africa and go to all these beautiful places. But I bet if I just sat in a dump somewhere, right, where we all throw our trash, I bet we'd find some really, really strange species there, huh?
Very much so.
And that's basically what you're saying, is where you're finding this stuff. Wow, that's fascinating. Oh, let's take a look at the next picture here. Is this guy upside down, or did we get the picture wrong?
No, he is actually upside down. This is a group of fish called the Gobies, and Gobies are again very small, less than an inch. Gobies have a little bit of a modification on them. Their ventral fins, the two fins, the first fins underneath their bodies, have been modified to be almost like a little sucker, so they can grab onto the reef, whatever orientation they are. So this guy is called a rusty goby, and he mostly lives upside down underneath ledges, inside caves, and so on.
And what does he hunt?
He's an omnivore. He'll eat just about anything. A lot of these will eat the juveniles of other species, juvenile shrimps, etc. There is a nice one to follow on from here.
Let's see the next one.
There's another photo of a small red fish that I think I sent you guys. He's a tiny little red guy, and it will be labeled the unicorn fish. Let's see if you can find that.
Let's scroll through those, Andy. You see him? We can get to that one. Let's go back to that. What was it? Octopus? Cuttlefish?
It was actually a squid.
Squid.
Mm-hmm.
We need your book so we can be better at identifying this. So this is just your standard squid?
Yeah, this is a very common species. It's called the Caribbean Reef Squid. I obviously caught him at night, and he's doing a defensive thing. When you get too close to them, they'll put their arms into that strange position. I think they're almost looks like they're mimicking a lionfish, doesn't it? But this is just before they're going to ink at you.
Did this one ink at you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. As soon as my flash fired, I got a face full of ink from this guy. He was not happy with that flash going off.
So I guess back to your process, the background's black. This is obviously at night. Are you chasing this guy around with like a low-powered flashlight or what before you hit that flash?
Yeah, a low-powered light. And quite often I'll use a red light because the color red obviously gets absorbed more quickly by the water. And it tends to make species a little calmer. Or you can, let's say, not calm, but you can approach them. You can sneak up on fish if you use a red light. Fish, squid, octopus, just about anything. Red lights are good for hunting.
And are you doing that? Like, I'm interested in the mechanics of the diving because you've got your camera right in your hands. Do you have two hands on that and a hand on a light, or do you have a headlamp, or what's it look like as you're stalking this fish through the water?
Sure. I've got everything on my rig actually. So on my camera, I'll have attached both my strobes for firing the light when I actually take the shot, but I'll also have my video lights. I'll have my red lights. I'll have UV lights, and everything's kind of attached to the camera. And the beauty of having a small, compact camera like I have is I can do all of this with one hand and give myself a very low profile, very slow moving as I approach these animals. So it's basically all in one hand.
That gives you the other hand to hang on in that surge, right?
Generally, if it's that surgy, yeah. You've got to be arm's distance away or you're going to get pretty scratched up.
Huh. All right, let's see the next picture, please.
Okay, I always find it interesting when people go through my photos and select certain
Yeah, we
things.
grabbed this one. Yeah, so Mickey sent us some photos, but
why do you like this one?
but we also just kind of picked some stuff that we thought looked cool.
So this one I liked because there's like a lot of depth of frame in there. You got something cool in like the foreground, the midground, and the background. So just an interesting frame all around.
That is,
Okay.
yeah, that is well composed. So
Cheers. I will try and do more of those.
because you've got that deep blue in the background, right? So what kind of fish is this? And I imagine that's some sort of plant.
No,
Is that the right
actually,
taxonomy? Is it a plant? It's not a coral. Is it a coral?
It is actually. People don't actually realize that sea fans are corals.
Huh.
On the surface of that sea fan are going to be countless thousands of tiny little coral polyps that are feeding on plankton in the water. So this is a sea fan, and it's waving back and forth in the surge. This is probably around 15, 20 feet or so, pretty shallow. And the fish is a trumpet fish. Now, trumpet fish has to be one of my favorite fish. Very, very successful. You'll find them in all tropical oceans around the world. That long shape that he has actually makes him a very effective predator. He can be up to 2 feet long, but as he approaches, he will be about the size of the end of your thumb, yes, in his head-on profile. So a very, very active predator, this, but it mimics its surroundings. So this guy put himself upside down next to that sea fan, and he actually swims back and forth, looking like one of those veins that comes up from the bottom of the sea fan. Quite often they'll turn themselves the same color as the sea fan. They can go blue, yellow, brown, basically any color they want to match those sea fans, wave along with them, and strike out at smaller fishes.
What is that called when an animal has that capability to change the pigment of their skin?
Yeah, it's called absomatic coloration.
Absomatic coloration.
Absomatic. No, actually, I lied. That would be more when they're trying to warn off other predators. I guess you would just call it mimicry.
How many species have that capability? Because I've heard of that with, well, cuttlefish, right? Certain. Is that correct? Octopus.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There are some fish as well that can be very sneaky. They engage in what's called aggressive mimicry, where they will look like a non-threatening fish.
Huh.
So you can have, let's say, a hamlet is a good example. It's a fish in the grouper family, related to a grouper. It's a carnivore, but it will mimic a butterfly fish. A pretty little butterfly fish that just goes around eating little shrimps and coral heads, and it's a cute, pretty little fish. Well, this little mini grouper has made himself look exactly like a butterfly fish, and he will go in and attack.
Huh.
There's others that will mimic their prey. The indigo hamlet looks exactly like the blue chromis, the little damselfish that are so common in the Caribbean.
Uh-huh.
So there's a little mini grouper, a hamlet, that mimics those little blue fish, coloration, swimming pattern, goes and swims inside the school, and then gobbles them all up when they're feeling calm.
I feel like the damselfish should catch on to that game, Hey, you're not one of us.
Think, right?
Oh, it's one of them. Let's get out of here. Let's take a look at the next picture. Next picture. Ooh.
I like this one too.
Yeah, that guy's scary. Both of them.
I like this one too.
I didn't know that they hung out together like this. What they hang out in packs, groups?
No, very rarely. Very rarely. I think this might have been a little prelude to mating. This might have been the only time I've seen two morays together. The only time I ever see eels together is when they're mating. These are solitary predators. So I think there might have been a little interruptus going on here when I took this photograph.
Huh. All right, next one. We'll get away from that eel pornography.
This is the last picture we have on file.
Hey, there's you with your book.
And that's me. That's me in my book.
So if we wanted to, I can ask a couple questions. Well, first, if people want to come down and dive in Roatan, what do they need to know?
It's really set up for diving now. So many dive shops, dive resorts. You could even come down and have no knowledge of diving whatsoever and get yourself certified, come and see the reef. Very, very experienced guides. It's not like some places in the world, I'm not going to mention locations, but, where they'll just strap a tank on you and throw you in the water. The dive shops here will take care of divers. So if anybody wants to come and experience it, just get in touch with pretty much any dive operator on the island. You'll get a feel of what they're like, what there is to see. Come and see it before it disappears. That's all I can say.
What if you're a tourist, what do you wish tourists knew when they came so that they're not acting like dumb tourists? Is there something that tourists do all the time that really annoys you? So if a big group of us go down there, we can avoid that.
Yeah. the regular stuff that tourists do, hell, people are on holiday. All right. Go out, make a fool of yourself, have fun. Great. But when you get into the water, respect where you are. Don't touch anything. Don't grab anything. Don't collect anything. Everything down there is a home for something else. Generally just stay away from the reef. It's a fragile ecosystem. Respect it.
All right. So lastly, your book. If we want to get your book, where's the best place to get this? Normally, when we have speakers come in, they sit here and we have the honor of having you sign the books, and that's nice. But what's the best way for people to get a hold of this book for their coffee table, their school library, what have you?
Sure. Easiest way, just go to my website, CaribbeanReefLife.com. You can find it on Amazon. I have ebooks as well, ebooks for both iPad and Android.
Okay.
You should find it in quite a few dive shops around the States as well by now.
What's the best way to experience? Because I like my Kindle, it's black and white. I feel like that wouldn't be.
Oh, no. I think the easiest way nowadays, or one of the more popular, are the iPad versions. It seems like everybody's got an iPad. I had it custom formatted for the iPad. All the searches and cross links and cross references work. Get yourself an iPad version.
That's good to know.
I like the book. I like to hold a book in my hands.
Well, I think a lot of people here like to hold that book in their hands too.
Yeah.
Okay. So at the end, normally what we do is we do a little Q&A for the members here that are in person and for those that are watching on YouTube. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass a mic around, and some people are going to do a Q&A. You'll be able to hear these people, but you probably won't be able to see them too well because it's dark out here. But do we have any questions from the audience? We'll get that mic hot in a second. And also, questions from the chat. Andy, if you have any questions from the chat. Andy's back there right now like a maniac, switching mics on and doing all sorts of stuff in that control room.
Oh, it's all fun. Hi, Mickey. Thank you so much for joining us. The mics are all hot now. But for those of us who can't make it over there, what's one way we can help preserve reefs and sort of restore life or help with the conservation effort?
That's a really good question. Thank you. Please go to the Roatan Marine Park, and all donations are very, very welcome. This is not an NGO. We have a group of almost volunteers that have been working for the last 10, 15 years, trying to maintain this reef and maintain the moorings, the Roatan Marine Park. All tax deductible, all donations are appreciated.
So now when you go down there, and if you dive in the marine park, is there, sometimes there's a park fee to get in. Is that the case?
There is. There is.
So that helps.
And it's only $10 a week. You get a little bracelet, and that helps towards the, it's mostly gas money for the rangers that are stopping the poachers. And that's a big one. So
what are people poaching down there?
It's funny. It's the most important species on a coral reef are the things that humans like to take off it the most. It's conch and lobster and crab.
I'm getting hungry.
No, man, no, these are terrible animals to eat. Don't eat them. They are much better cleaning the reef. These are not clean animals. If you knew what lobsters ate, you would not put that in your body.
It's real tough. It's real tough, Mickey.
Filthy animals.
Lobster roll, crab cake, conch fritters. Like my 1, 2, and 3 favorite foods right there. But that's good to know that you. But what we're saying,
of these guys eating the crap that's left over from the daytime.
yeah,
You will not eat lobster or conch or crab again. It's filthy stuff.
I have some friends that eat the mustard and the crab, and I'm not into that. But but that's good to know because those are delicious foods, but it's not sustainable, right?
No, not at all. And as I say, these are the species that clean the reef. It's like killing your janitors, and then wondering why your house is such a mess.
That's a good point. All right, we have a question from Steve Elkins in the back there.
Yes, thanks for taking the question.
Let's wait till your mic's hot, Steve. Is that green light on? Andy, is that mic hot?
It's hot. It says green light on.
Can you hear him, Mickey?
No, but you can just
Try one more time. Try one more time.
Hello, can you hear me now? Oh, shit.
Try one more time.
Trying again and again.
I'm gonna have to stand up. Here we go.
No, there we go. We got it.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't realize it was the
Working
podium
now?
mic.
Can you hear me? Hello, test 1, 2, 3.
Here, can you hear through this mic, Mickey? Can you hear me?
not hearing you, man.
Can't hear me?
No, don't hear anybody. I'll have to do it in sign.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and ask the question, and I'll just repeat it, Steve.
Okay. Oh, maybe you can hear me now.
Oh,
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Are you familiar at all with any of the work that was going on at Telemarine on the mainland, which just shut down? There was an English marine biologist there, Dr. Dan Exton,
So
doing
let me
work
just
on
repeat
trying
that.
to preserve the coral.
let me repeat that question because I don't think it came through. Are you familiar with any of the Telemarine work? Is that correct, Telemarine?
Yeah, Telemarine.
Yeah, very much so. That is run by a good friend of mine called Antal Orstek.
Yeah, I know him.
And
Yeah.
Antal has done some really amazing work in a place called Tela, and Tela is just on the northern coast. It's probably one of my favorite places to dive in Honduras. I've got so many new species out of Tela, and he's just created the first aquarium in Central America. And he's doing a great job. Thanks for shouting out. Telemarine organization.
But I know
Fantastic work, great people.
I know Antal, and unfortunately, he just had to shut it down. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Did you hear that, Mickey? He said he just had to shut that down.
Oh no, I was just chatting to him about 2 weeks ago. Why has it shut down?
You know, I don't have the entire story, but he sent me a video clip he put out. It's just sort of a depressing video saying he built this up. I mean, he really did a fantastic job, and he was doing great research in restoring the coral and figuring out how to get them to live again. And I don't know what happened, but the place is now shut down. I don't know. I was going to ask you what's happening to Antal.
Huh.
Well,
Any inside information?
It's funny because I just sent him a WhatsApp this afternoon. It's funny that I have to go to Los Angeles to get news of my friend who's living on the coast. No, I don't know what's happened, and I'll be contacting him pretty much as soon as this is over. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm not surprised. This is Honduras. This is the original Banana Republic. There's a lot of red tape ain't in it. So yeah, thanks for letting me know. I'm sure I've got some inboxes to look at. Thank you.
Yeah, and
Weird that I have to hear it here, but thanks.
And if you do hear something contrary, that he's being reinstated or he's setting up somewhere else, please let us know.
Yeah, let us know.
All right. Sure. Thanks.
Any more questions from the audience here? Any more questions from the chat, Andy? Oh, here we got Lance Miller here.
What's the economy like there if we want to come down? Is it priced as an international resort or is it priced as a banana republic?
Sorry, you're gonna have to repeat the question.
So the prices down there, are the prices more like international resort, or are they more Banana Republic prices?
We're still Banana Republic kind of prices. you can expect to pay maybe $30 for a dive at a very good operation. You can expect to pay anywhere between $100, $200 a night, all inclusive. Yeah, price-wise, we are still very much Banana Republic. Don't worry about that.
So $30 a dive. That's a boat dive with a tank.
Yeah, and a Divemaster and your gear.
Oh wow. Yeah,
Yep.
I saw some eyes light up in this room. I'll tell you what. But you just got to get there first, right?
Feel free to share my email address with
All right.
anybody in the crowd there. If they want recommendations on who to dive with, they're more than welcome to contact me. Come and see it. It's a beautiful reef, and
All
it's
right.
worth coming down for.
Well, hey, Mickey, thank you. Any more questions before we sign off here? Thank you for coming tonight. Well, thank you for joining us virtually. We really appreciate it. A fascinating talk, beautiful photography. I'm sure lots of people will be buying your book after this.
Thank you.
So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, and we're here every Thursday.